This was a nice break. Hey folks, Dachshund Wedge here. I'm a photographer and game developer, and I'm finally today going to do an overview of Jedi Survivor's photo mode. We'll start by talking about the UI and some of the camera options available, and then we'll talk about how you can use those things in game and some of the quirks of the game itself that influence the photos you take. Overall, this photo mode is pretty good. It has most of the standard features you'd expect from this type of game, and it also has some additional lighting effects that are nice as well. First, you get to the photo mode by going to the normal pause mode. This is start for me on a controller, and press triangle or Y, depending on your PlayStation, Xbox, the top circle button. So if you're in the middle of an action sequence and you want to take a picture, you just have to be quick to get to the pause button. On PC, you can find these photos at your user directory, pictures, respawn, Jedi Survivor. I have it down below where you can copy from if you want. On the first camera screen, you get the normal things. Position, zoom, tilt, exposure, but there's a few others on there as well. Jedi Survivor uses f-stop for the camera depth of field setting, so a smaller f number here is going to give you a thinner depth of field. Or I guess a thinner in focus area in your depth of field. Then you can change the focal distance of that in focus area so that the sharper parts are around your focal point. The screen also has vignette and film grain, which I consider to be more like filters, but whatevsies. They both kind of do what you'd expect here. I left film grain on most of my photos. I liked the cinematic look of the photos. That's something I'm going to talk a bit about later. I really like to lean into that. Yeah, so I left film grain on. Do what you want with it. The next screen is the actual filters, and the only thing to note about all this is that all of the color options, like contrast, saturation, temperature, that you'd normally have sliders for in like a photo editing piece of software, those are all done through filters here. Those options don't exist as far as I know elsewhere in the camera settings. Instead, if you want to, for example, desaturate an image, you need to go to the filter screen, pick the black and white filter, and then lower the filter strength, and that will partially black and white your photo, which is desaturation. There are other filters that make your photo more high contrast. There are some that make them hotter or warmer. And so you can control the colors by using these filters in the way you'd use those color sliders. This took me a minute to figure out and kind of reframe myself around it. But once I got it, I got most of the color options I wanted. It actually wound up working pretty well. The next two screens are stickers and frames. Sticker and frame selection here is fine. There's some that are okay, but I don't personally super love stickers or frames, especially when they're big and bombastic. The one I used most was the top and bottom crop frame. And going back to the film grain discussion, it basically makes the photo widescreen, which makes it feel like super cinematic. I kind of don't know how to describe it other than that, but it looks like you just took a movie screenshot, and I really like that look, so I leaned into that a lot. You'll see that in a lot of my photos. I probably wouldn't use this frame in other games, but in this one, for some reason, it felt right, so that's what I did. Next is the lighting screen, which is one of the more interesting features of this photo mode. I've seen this in a couple games now where they give you the option to put lights in areas. You can put up to 3 spotlights on the character of different colors and intensities. I think they kind of just go automatically to the focal point of the photo, like Cal. I wish I could change their location, but I so far haven't figured out how to do it. Regardless of that, the lights are really useful for drawing focus and complementing the other lights in the scene because the lighting is generally pretty good in this game. You can use it to like amplify the light of a lightsaber, for example. The lightsaber maybe doesn't give off as dramatic light as you would like. If you have a blue lightsaber, you can put a blue spotlight on it and make it brighter. If you have a blue lightsaber or a green lightsaber and you want to have some contrast, you can use like an orange or red color on Cal's face and have the blue on the left and the orange or red on the right. And I think that that's kind of a cool way to get like a contrasting color gradient on your photo. So I had a lot of fun with the spotlights and adding those. In addition, there is just a white light that you can add if you want to brighten up part of your photo. So I think the lights are actually really useful, even though they're the last slot. Don't overlook them. The actual last screen lets you remove characters and NPCs from photos. It does what it says. This picture of BD1 falling, this was taken because he's still on Cal. Cal is falling, and Cal is just set to hidden. These sliders do what you want, but, you know, use them creatively. Okay, so that's the details on camera settings. Let's talk about the game itself and how to use them effectively. The game is structured as a series of kinda medium-sized open worlds. Between all the worlds, the different areas are like pretty diverse, so there's definitely distinct photo opportunities at different places that you should take into account when you're going in to these places to take pictures. For example, my favorite place to take photos has been Kobo. This is kind of like the home area, and it has a pretty diverse set of locations. One story mission takes place at night, which is really nice because you get the lights, and the mission has some fog as well, so the lights look super dramatic, and it's easy to get like good high contrast photos with this kind of like black and white with the fog dispersing all the light. That looks really cool. A lot of levels have some harsh lighting though. You're often on space stations with bright white lights or in the bright desert sun. There are some more interesting places like this one where you can get into cover even in those areas and find like some really cool lighting effects, a cool story to be told there, a monster on the ground, the light shining into the cave. Stuff like that I think is really nice, and so that stuff exists even in the areas with the more harsh lighting. Another thing that's worth noting is that taking photos in the more flat direct lighting here can look pretty good too. The graphics are just pretty good, especially if you're more focused on the action shots like this one. Like I said, you can pause at any time, and with the filters that I mentioned in the camera settings, you can actually like get some pretty good texture out of a lot of the objects in the game that I think kind of make up for the more direct lighting. And another thing that I wanted to bring up again here with the lighting is, in addition to the spotlight feature I mentioned earlier, Cal always has a lightsaber on him that will provide some light as well. It doesn't do a lot, but there are a bunch of different lightsaber colors to pick from depending on what light you want, and there's even a silver lightsaber if you want a neutral light as well, so you can just use that as kind of like a brightness light rather than a colored light. Your blaster also has some upgrades that let it do explosions of different types. So you can mess around with that. There's an electric one that gives you kind of a lightning effect. That was pretty useful. Enemy rockets and grenades also have different effects as well if your timing is good with them. And I should mention here, the outline, the targeting outlines, I believe do still show up on enemies in photo mode. So if you have an enemy glowing red because it's doing an unblockable attack, that will actually show up in your photo mode. The way I approached this game overall was kind of taking shots like I'm trying to make a movie poster, with the film grain and the lighting and the widescreen frame and just like the Star Wars-ness of the whole game. I think the photo mode is well suited for taking cinematic shots of Cal and the main characters. There are some nice environments, but they're kind of scripted viewpoints and have pretty harsh lighting overall. So I think the focus for me doing photo mode was to focus on Cal and his friends for the most varied photo opportunities, especially since you can take a photo easily during any action sequence. So action photos are very easy to take. I had a good time with this game overall, and I like the photo mode as well. I'm glad they added it. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, a quick update. I went and had to replay this whole game on PC recently after getting all the footage from PS5, so you're likely seeing mostly PS5 footage here. I've been busy with life events and making my next game, so I just haven't gotten around to this photo mode stuff. Now that I did, I'm hoping to do the new Dragon Age Veilguard next, and maybe Surge 2. I've had that one on my backlog for a while, but we'll see. I've been pretty consistent about being inconsistent so far, so I expect that to continue on.